Welcome back to part 3 of the iPhone charger project. If you haven't watched parts 1 and 2 yet, please make sure to watch those first before you continue on to this part, part 3. Now I'm going to let Harris continue.
To start the lightning portion, start a new sketch by clicking the Sketch button, then selecting the new circle as a face. Now create the new center point rectangle by clicking the tool. Drag the rectangle outside of the circle and set the dimensions with 8 by 4.5 millimeters. Now exit the sketch. To extrude this section, press the extrude button and select all of the surfaces we had just created. Set the depth to 12 millimeters and click the check mark to finish. Now we want to start a new sketch. Click the sketch tool and select the plane shown. To get the center, start by drawing 2 lines across the rectangle, with both ends at the midpoints. As now we have the center of a rectangle, we will select Center Point Rectangle and draw another rectangle on the face without any constraints. Now we can add the dimensions and add dimensions 6 by 1.5 millimeters. Finish the sketch. Now click the Extrude tool and select the 4 inside rectangles. And now insert the depth of 6.5 millimeters. Select the check mark and finish. To start on the side grooves, start adding a sketch, selecting the face shown, and adding a rectangle with no constraints. Click the Dimensions button and constrain the rectangle with a dimension of 2 by 1 millimeters. And now 0.25 millimeters from the left edge and 1 millimeter from the top edge. Once done, everything should be properly constrained. Lastly, click the Line tool and insert a line across the midpoints horizontally. Now exit the sketch by pressing the check mark. Once we finish, please repeat this onto the other side of the cable. Remember that the dimensions are 2 by 1 millimeters and 0.25 millimeters of space horizontally and 1 millimeter from the top edge. Now, extrude by selecting the Extrude tool and then choose from the Remove option. With the Remove option, you can now enter the depth of 0.2 millimeters. Once we finish, remember to repeat this for the other side with a depth of 0.2 millimeters. To make the indents look realistic, we are using a fillet to curve off the edges. To do this, select the Fillet button and choose the edges, as shown. Edit the radius to be 2.5 millimeters and click the check mark to finish the fillet. Please also repeat this for both sides, and remember that the radius is 2.5 millimeters. We can now create the individual grooves on the lightning charger. To start, create a new sketch by clicking the Sketch button, then selecting the face shown. The side does not matter as much, since we will need to make this again on the other side. We would start by drawing a rectangle inside the face without any constraints onto it. Click the Dimension tool and set the dimensions of the rectangle to be 5 by 2 millimeters. We can also dimension the distance between the left edge of the face and the rectangle, which will be 0.5 millimeters. The top edge of the rectangle to the top of the face would also be 0.5 millimeters. To round off the corners, we would be using the Sketch Fillet tool, then selecting on the 4 corners of the rectangle. After done, we click the Dimension tool again and set the radius of the sketch fillet to be 0.5 millimeters. To add each individual groove, first start on the left side and insert a rectangle by selecting the tool. When we finish drawing the rectangle, click on the Dimension tool again and first start with the rectangle, which is 1.15 millimeters tall and 0.25 millimeters wide. Next, we constrain the rectangle 0.625 millimeters on the left and 0.425 millimeters to the bottom. As the rectangle should be fully constrained, we will now add another set of sketch fillets to the rectangle, selecting one on each corner. We can now constrain it by choosing the arcs to be 0.125 millimeters as the radius. Now, one of them should be done and fully constrained. Luckily, we can use the linear pattern in our toolbar and select the shape we just created. Double-click on the dimension number to change the distance to be only 0.5 millimeters. And double-clicking the 3x to change it to 8x. Now, everything should be black and constrained properly. We can leave the sketch by clicking the checkbox and repeating this onto the other side. Once we exit the sketch, we can start the extrude process again. Click the extrude button and select all the shapes we just made. For the depth, enter 0.01 millimeters and click the checkbox to finish. Please repeat this extrude on the other side and remember that the depth is 0.01 millimeters. To extrude the individual grills, make sure you can view your sketch by clicking the eye, then selecting the extrude button on the toolbar. Now, click each of the individual grills enter the depth of 0.01 millimeters. Click the checkmark to finish and repeat it on the other side. Remember that the depth of the grills are 0.01 millimeters. Now, to fillet the lightning charger, select the fillet tool and choose the two edges on the top of the lightning cable, as shown. Make sure that the radius is 1 millimeter and click the check mark. Lastly, we will be filleting the lightning charger base by first selecting the fillet toolbar, then selecting the corners shown here. We would also need to change the depth to 2.25 millimeters and click the check mark.
Congratulations, everyone! You're done with your iPhone charger. And thanks so much to Harris for showing you how to create it. Please let us know in the discussion board or the live Q&A whether you want an easier or harder project for next week. Thanks, everyone!